Hey, what's up, bro? Long time no see, man. Sparkle, you in early. Sparkle, why you here? You come for commerce. You're in early. Yeah, Raquel, sometimes you have to be fashionably late, so I apologize, though. I'm just going to wait for about a minute again, just to let some people come in, and then we shall start. Yes, Sparkle, I see you. You didn't want to miss this one at all. That's okay. As long as you're here for a good cause. I see. Okay. I think it's motivated by the topic, though. So how you guys week? Gonna have a very interesting live tonight. And remember, guys, if you want to come on, this is not a combative live. So if you want to come on and give your own point of view based on your own experience, just let me know. I'll pull you on for a minute or two and then we switch, all right? I'm not going to bite. So, as I usually start my videos by saying, I promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Of course, you woke. So, unequally yoked. So the first thing I wanted for us to understand with regards to unequally yoked, it's not what we generally think it is. All right, it's almost the total opposite. So in other words, let's just say you have an average guy and an average girl, and they're similar in the way they think and behave. It means that they are not equally yoked. It means they're actually unequally yoked. All right? Because what you actually have is, remember, so you see I say think and behave. Have you ever seen a couple, right, where one talks a lot and one doesn't? And you say, wow, they deserve each other. They're actually the total opposite. That might not necessarily be true. Because when you look at personality traits, those are the things that actually really matter. All right? Personality types, those are the things that really matter. In other words, you've seen stories worldwide where a husband and a wife decided to either starve children, kidnap, do some kidnapping, do some kind of abuse, something crazy that would cause you to ask yourself, how is it possible that two individuals from two different parents, and one would be outgoing, you find that one would be a very quiet guy, they're husband and wife, but both of them have agreed to kidnap a woman and sexually abuse them. I remember growing up in my village and I heard about a couple. Now you look at them, they're both highly masculine, right? So I looked at that and I was like, okay, interesting. And they had about 7 or 8 children. And on those 7 or 8 children, about 5 of them were girls. And what happened is that for about 3 or 4 of the girls, while they were growing up, the father used to interfere with them. And he used to have intercourse with them. So what happened is that you found that for the older two, as soon as they got to adult age, 18, they left home. They found men who were interested in them and they actually left home. Then they had there was a boy in the mix, and then there were 2 other girls and another boy. So what happened is that the other 2 girls, the other 2 sisters were actually younger. So let's say they were about 4 or 5 years apart from the 2 elder sisters. And only when it came to the second batch of sisters is when you found out that the father was interfering with his daughters. So the two that went before, you know, they butter it up and they just left. I'm not so sure that they have had therapy, which is a very frightening thing, because what happens with that is, because of insecurities, because of personalities, because of emotional, the emotional aspect and how women's mind think opposed to men more logical. A lot of women are walking around with baggage, and this is also why women shouldn't get into a lot of relationships, because the more relationships a woman have with men and ends, is the more baggage she actually carries, because she tends to not let go. So these two older sisters now, you could just imagine what their husbands are going through because of what they experienced when they were younger. But the icing on the cake with regards to this scenario is, strangely, when the father started to interfere with the second set of daughters, second pair of daughters, so this is number 3 and 4 daughters, the mother decided she needs to get piece of the action. And so then you have the father and the mother, not together of course, because that would have probably taken it over the edge, but both father and mother were having sex with their daughters. I mean, and I grew up wondering, like, how in God's name is that possible? Simple. Both of them were equally yoked. As crazy as it sounds, the only way you can get two people to think like that, not leaving each other, but both of them thinking about having sex with their children, as crazy as it is, as bad a parents as they are, and the fact that they should both be locked up, and I think they're both in court right now. I think the case is just going on so long, it probably is about 15 years now. Point is, they're equally yoked. That is why they able to think like that. And so when you see a guy dating a woman, for example, it's not based on who speaks and who doesn't. It's not necessarily either who is masculine and who's feminine. There's a lot more that goes into it, because one cancels out the other on both sides. If you get a relationship where both sides, which would be the personality traits, right, of the individual and the characteristics of that individual, if you get them to be equally yoked on both ends, that's when you actually have a very unique relationship. I remember dating a girl, and I met her immediately, and this is why I keep saying that if a guy is not meeting you and proposing within 6 months to a year, it simply means that there is a problem in that relationship. And if he proposes to you after 6 months to a year, it's not because you all are suited, it's simply because you both have grown to be able to tolerate each other. And so you've made a decision subconsciously to compromise, which I don't agree with. All right, I don't agree with that compromise should ever be in a relationship, but that's what actually happens. So when you see a man with a woman for 5, 10, 15 years, and then he gets married to her, he was searching all the time, and then he just simply says, you know what, I'm going to just marry her because she have been around so long, what will I do again? So that is what actually happens. Now, how do you know when you're equally yoked with someone? Because with girl I dated, I wanted to marry her in 6 months. I asked her for her ring size, and like I'm telling you, we would have been married. But one question came up. She asked me to go to church with her on a Sunday. I said, okay, that's not a problem. Because it's always noble when a woman is looking from a spiritual aspect. She knew that of my spirituality as well. So church is not a problem. But I asked one question. I said, I would go with you under one condition. I would go with you on the basis that you tell me, why is it that I must go with you on Sunday? Why do you go to church on a Sunday? And she couldn't answer. So what she told me is, hey, when we get to the church, you can feel free to ask the elders. So I said in response, I said, listen, no, I'm not doing it like that. If you are going to be my wife, it means that I'm going to be your priest. It means, therefore, that what you're doing right now is that you're not trusting that I can be your priest. You're asking me to go and ask other men. I don't know what relationship they would have with God, as much as they may know scripture. As I told a friend last night, before, the only being that doesn't know as much scripture as Christ or God is the devil. So we may be always caught up by someone who says a lot of things that are holy and could rattle off scripture, but the actions is the problem. So she could not answer me. I said, I'm not going to church with you then, because I'm not interested. I don't care about the people there. I care about what you think. And if you can't tell me what you think and justify it, then it means, therefore, I'm not going to just do what you say, because give me a reason why you do it. I'm not judging you. I just asked a question. And she couldn't give me an answer. The relationship ended. It was really that simple. It couldn't last because she was not able to tell me why. And so the point I'm making is that we tend to learn a lot of stuff based on culture and based on personality traits of people external to us without knowing ourselves. So the first thing is that one must spend time to know ourselves. You must know who you are. Because to choose a mate is not based on, and this is something I have heard women say at all levels, that they want someone who they can respect, etc. And women who ends the relationships or marriages, their number one reason is, I'm not happy, it doesn't make me feel. And so if you enter or leave a marriage on the basis of how someone else external of you makes you feel, that's a problem. It means that it's superficial. That's what it means. You must make a decision to choose a partner based on where you see yourself going, where that person is and where they are going or is desirous in going. It can't always be that what turns you on. I mean, there's a whole lot of research scientifically on the basis of women choosing mates only or mainly based on he being able to stir something inside of her, get her juices flowing, get her mind thinking and operating. But you see now when you look at relationships worldwide, and all of you would know people who are actually divorced or getting divorced right now, or have long-term relationships that ended. And it's simply because when you chose that person on the basis of how that person made you feel and what you think you are attracted to without really knowing who you are. This is why relationships, when parents would have chosen a mate for their daughters a long time, it tend to last, and the love that both parties would have had for each other would have usually been true and much stronger than what you see today. Today, what you see is not love, it's a lot of lust. And when the lust is over and the honeymoon is over and all the red flags start to show, some people are already married. And then you see chaos. I mean, people close to me. I've seen some relationships end just recently. I've seen some scenarios. I've heard people say that doors have been kicked in and people I know close to me have been abused. And I would have never guessed that is actually happening. So how do you choose a person? It must be, you must understand yourself first. You must know what makes you tick. Understand your own love language, where you want to go. You must know because if you know where you want to go, you know where you don't want to go. When you meet someone else, you need to ask a particular type of questions. And I'm serious, ladies, and I'm going to the ladies mainly because relationships, as I always say over and over, is not about men, it's about women. However, men have the keys to relationship. You have the access to sex. That's why you withhold sex. But that's also why men leave relationships. So that's why men turn off relationships and cause you to want to exit the relationships. Because if a man is engaged in you, a man who you love, and he's activated to make you happy and really serve you, you wouldn't go anywhere as a woman, because he will keep you engaged mentally. That is why a lot of times when relationship ends, women tend to not be able to move on. I've known some women for 3, 4, 5 years have not moved on, and that man would have had 2 different women and probably married by then, and she hasn't been able to move on. She got older, and so her market value, or SMV, sexual market value, has depreciated significantly during that period of time. How do you choose, and how do you know when you're equally yoked with someone? You must know yourself. When you know that, I'm talking about personality types and personality traits. For instance, if you are a person that you find yourself being out there, very happy and the life of the party, you actually need someone who is much more reserved and relaxed. Both you and your wife can't be life of the party, can't be extroverted, or shouldn't be. If that is the case, it means that what has to happen is that he has to have a huge degree of upbringing and culture to balance that off. And that is where it gets tricky, because if let's say one party is optimistic and the next one is pessimistic, then you have a problem. If both are pessimistic, you have another problem. But if both parties are optimistic, then it could probably work. In other words, people that are open to change. You must decide, and before deciding that, you must know, what personality type you are. Are you a phlegmatic? Are you a sanguine? Are you a melancholic? You must know these things, because these personality traits indicate to you who you are, the characteristics of what makes up your personality. And so you know exactly what goes easier with your personality. We tend to think it's about horoscope. It's not about horoscope signs, mainly. However, they tend to also give an indicator based on what type of personality traits that people have. But you have to remember, for instance, men and women are raised differently. All right? Women have some stuff built in their system that they can grow up almost anywhere they'll behave. Just give a woman a baby, a girl a baby who's a 10, without her ever holding one, and you'll see she knows how to hold that child. But when it comes to men have to be cultured. That's why you see there's a 3 to 5 year lag between men and women and how they actually be able to mature. Women are naturally able to mature because their personalities are most times built in. What affects women is if there's the absence of a father in a house. Absence of a father for both genders create chaos. If you are a mother raising a boy child with the absence of a father, you're going to raise that child to be too effeminate, and he's going to be rejected by women. If you are a single mother raising a girl child, you're going to raise that girl child or girl children too masculine, and she's going to be turned off by men. So the presence of a man in a house, so if a father is raising a daughter, you'd find most times that daughter can be raised pretty okay. In most cases, better than a mother raising that daughter or a son, because she has some stuff built into her. You see? And if a father is raising a son, because he brings that masculine element and he understands how women should be treated as a man, but how to also be masculine, you find that child is also going to be raised very solid. Now, I'm not saying that men are better nurturers. I'm saying that the presence of a father is much needed, more needed. Okay? But a man cannot nurture. So the point is that both genders in a relationship actually serve a purpose, because a father is not going to nurture like a mother can. So when it comes to showing empathy and sympathy for situations, you'll find that a child who grew up with a father is going to be so logical that they tend to be highly disconnected. So these are things that you must know. If you are a female and you choose to, let's say, for example, be with a guy, you must ask certain things. If you're a woman and you like men who are fit and in shape, do not change what you actually like because time is passing. It's going to hurt you more. In other words, it's worse for you to get into a relationship because you think time is running out and you spend 2-3 years with a guy who you know that you really didn't feel anyhow about, but he's a nice guy and you're trying something different because you're getting older, that over that 3-year period, if you put in more work on your physical and you work to be equal to what you're actually seeking, your probability of finding a person who complements you is higher or more likely. In other words, you're going to be able to be in a relationship that is much more satisfying than one that you're just there for and you have settled into. Because a lot of women tend to date up, but a lot of times in dating up, it's not what you actually need, it's what you want. And that is what tends to hurt women a lot, because they are not going in line with what they actually is supposed to be with at a particular point in time in their life. And this happens because of culture, the amount of romance books that people read, and they are not realistic. In order for you to find out if you're equally yoked, you must know yourself and know what it is you like. If spirituality matters highly to you, which it should in a relationship, because we are spiritual beings in a human body, then it means that you must seek to find a partner in the places where spirituality reigns. If you like a guy who is good looking or pretty boy, do not choose someone who is handsome. It's not the same. If you like a guy who is masculine, which would be a guy who is more handsome, or you like a guy who is 6 foot tall, or 6 foot plus, or you like a guy who is a bodybuilder, or a guy who has a big belly, a little chubby, because there are women who like men with a little fluff on them, then that is what you need to ensure that you find. Do not settle for something that is not part of you or who you really are. It's going to affect you. If you are a person that you're highly sexual, but you know your partner, be male or female, is not a sexual person or is not necessarily a freaky person, or if you are into some freaky stuff, then do not settle for someone and say that sex is really not that important, because it's not true. Subconsciously to you, it matters a whole lot, because that is how you connect, especially if you're a man. I remember a pastor friend of mine told me long time ago, before I even started to speak, if I like girls that are pretty, then find someone that are pretty. The minute you are with someone that you don't find to be pretty or gorgeous, no matter how good her body is, she's going to start to annoy you after time. It was one of the best advice, because when I come back and look at it over the years, I see that actually mattered to me. So you have to choose the person based on what you like. But in order to be equally yoked from an external standpoint, you have to be able to match exactly what it is that you're seeking in a partner to complement you. It can't be simply, this is what I want, because a friend of mine and I was talking this today, where women will see us stray in a particular way, and then they'll just look at us and assume, like, hey, I want him, I can be with him. And we laughed at a girl that was tracking him last night, who was approximately 30 pounds overweight. And he's an alpha in the gym, and has a lot of attention from some of the women that are more in shape and highly attractive. But there's this girl, and we were laughing at this today, and like, how could she think that she's so bold to shoot a shot? He wasn't taking her serious. She was actually laughing at her. Simply because she was not what she wanted. She didn't match up to what she wanted. So if you're choosing a partner, make sure that you are exactly what it is you want to be equally yoked to. Unless you are in great shape and you like someone who is overweight, it gets easier for you. Be it man or woman. But if it is that you are not in shape, you should not seek to be with a guy who is, or a woman who is. It's easier, however, for a man who is not in shape to be with a woman who is, because women don't select men mainly on the basis of the external. Women choose a man based, his SMV is based on his status. So the order is, a woman chooses a man based on status, personality, and then looks. Those are not the only 3, there are about 10, but those are the top 3, and women usually choose in that order. I've met some women who choose a man based on looks, status, and then personality, or looks, personality, and then status. But generally, it's status, personality, and looks. Because you hear women say that They want someone who like to makes them laugh. But what goes before that is the status. However, men generally choose women almost flipped. Men choose women on the basis of how they look, personality, and status. However you flip it with men, most times status is usually at the bottom of the table. So you'll find men where either choose personality then looks, or looks then personality, but status will come in last. Generally, if you find a man who chooses a woman based on status first, he is generally, in most cases, not worth her salt. He's not worth her time. It means that he's choosing her only on the basis that to be a sugar mama, that she can take care of him literally. Men love to be able to provide. And so those are the things to look out for when you're looking to find a mate. But choose a partner on the basis of what it is you think you need, not what you want. Find out about yourself. Understand, and don't think for a minute that because you are in a church with someone or you go to the same church, that is the basis of how you choose a mate to see if you're equally yoked. That is not it at all. Let me tell you why. I grew up in two different denominations. I belong to none now. I do believe that there is a God. I do believe in scripture, but I do not subscribe to any religious domination because we are not supposed to, contrary to what you grew up thinking and believe. That's my view. I've seen it nowhere in scripture, and therefore I'm not going to do it. Right? And so on that basis, but I grew up in two different denominations. I grew up in Roman Catholic and I grew up in Seventh-day Adventist. Both of them are arch rivals. And so not understanding the RFC because I left that church, or I was forced to leave at a pretty early age, generally wouldn't have stayed. That's just my view. Nothing against someone who is. But growing up in the Seventh-day Adventist church, that's where you are taught that Sabbath needs to be kept, which I also believe as well. However, there are people in that church, if you go to different parts of this country alone, you will see that there are people, and I've seen I know some friends who said that when they were growing up, they could not bathe during the Sabbath or cook or warm food. Women not being attracted to certain men based on looks. Well, that is... I need a little more explanation on that, Sparkle, because generally, if you look on YouTube, you look at gold digger videos, or it's like 1 in 20 women are not choosing men based on status. You know, that's the average. I think the guy said in one of the gold digger videos I was looking at. I just find them so amazing that women can reject men. And some of them that actually are attractive, great height. There's a guy from Trinidad there as well who does some of those videos. But as soon as they see the car that he's driving, how they all turn, make a 180 and say, "Is that your car?" And their tone changes and their whole body language changes and stuff. So they are selecting men on the basis of what they actually have. But you also have some women who prefer to have a relationship with a man that they can build together. So I hear you. Maybe that's what's trending now based on a guy, how he looks. But that will hurt women more than anything else, because most women don't really take care of their bodies. You know, and because of the level of estrogen that women have in their system, it's also even a bit harder for women to be in great shape because they're generally softer. But if they're serious about it, it's pretty easy for most women just based on diet. So, but I'll look into what you're saying there with women seeking men based on looks. But give me a little more information on that. But being unequally yoked, people tend to not understand, and they go into relationships and get married quickly because they're about women are passing up men based on attraction. Okay. Yeah, so they're choosing men because they're in the same church, for example. If you are in a relationship with somebody from the same church, you both grew up, let's say it's the same Adventist church. You both grew up in that church, And what if you believe, based on what you read in scripture, that you can go to the gym on the Sabbath, and another one says under no condition, or one say we can have sex, another one says no. In other words, one is optimistic, one is pessimistic. One is willing to learn and unlearn and relearn. The other one is not taking that risk. They have learned something, this is what I believe, and I'm not changing from it. Because a lot of people tend to choose and stay in relationships on the basis of they're insecure to unlearn something, because to give up something means you're giving up a piece of who you are. And that is not easy for most people to do. How do I give up who I am? You know, this is what I know, this is what I grew up, this is what everybody tells me, this is what makes me me. In my lifetime, I've learned that almost everything I said I was never going to do, I actually had to do, or I actually did. But most people, you find, generally aren't willing to take the risk of getting to have a different end. People tend to do the same thing over and over. So if you're in a relationship, even if you're in the same religion, it can't be because I love you or the sex is great. That sex is not going to last. If that is what keeps you, then that's a problem. Find a guy, if sex is important to you, that can give you great sex, but is also going to balance off what you don't have as a female, so that when he comes into your life, or she comes into your life, that person is going to give you part of them, and you're going to give them part of you. So both of you are going to be able to balance off each other. It can't be I have a friend who told me that we are too unalike, so she'll never date me. And I just found that was one of the most foolish statements that she could have made. And since then I've sat, not buttered, it was a statement made loosely. All right, cool, no sin. And I'm waiting to see where this man coming from. Because what she doesn't know is she subconsciously can only be with a man that is like me. But she's trying to find a guy who is not like me, but when she finds people that is not like me and she dates, she genuinely is not attracted to them. Because subconsciously, what she actually needs is to have a guy who's able to balance off, which is a personality type like me. But she doesn't know that, because, again, it's a culture that we grew up with. And so I wait to see where the guy comes from. None is coming. I already know that none is coming. So let's see. And that's the mistake a lot of people make. A lot of women make that mistake by thinking that they need something, that someone. If a man is the polar opposite of a woman, why in God's name would you think that you need to be with a man who is like you? That's like crazy. That's so dangerous to have a guy that is like you from a personality level. And if you find a guy who's like you from a personality traits level or characteristics, that's even worse. Because imagine both you and your wife goes to an event and none of you like to socialize. And you see some people like that, you know some people like that walking in your village. Imagine both of you go to an event and both of you, one on a counter on that side, one on a counter on that side. Somebody going to do something that is going to cause the other one to get upset, because both male and female, and if they do the same thing, somebody is going to get vexed, because what a man will do, a woman wouldn't do generally. But if you have the same personality and somebody in a counter, somebody with women in a party, loud, whatever it is, it's going to have issues in that relationship. But if you are a person who's the life of the party and your wife isn't, you'll find that, and you see it, many times you go to events and you see a guy who, when his girlfriend isn't there, is the life of the party, but when she's there, you say it, he can't talk to nobody. His girlfriend is here, so he can't talk to anybody. What is actually happening is that that's a good thing. It means that he has to demonstrate restraint, some degree of discipline, which we all need. But we don't know that. And I've seen some guys, people that were out there, and when I go to events now, because I haven't gone to events in years, over a decade. And when I go to events, I went to an event, I think last year, before COVID. And I see who they married and whatever. These women weren't the sexiest of women. But you can see why they are with these women. The personality of these women. You can tell that these women are dominant women, focused women. You see? It's a little more than manners. Manners is subjective, Sparkle. You wouldn't believe what some people think is manners. I've dated some people who what they think is manners is total disrespect to me. So I think it's a bit more manners than just manners. It's simply you found what you need in order to be in a relationship with and be happy. That you're equally yoked. So the bottom line of what I'm saying, guys, being equally yoked, and I didn't want to get into it to be too spiritual and go into scripture and show any of these excessive links. But my point is simply this. You must understand who you are, what your weaknesses are, and what you need in a partner. Most times, choose a partner on the basis of what your weaknesses, that person's strength is your weaknesses. Because what you're going to have is that person going to balance you out. I've seen even my own family with my mother and father. I have asked myself time and time again, how does my father make out? But his personality is one that is well suited for my mother. Had she married another guy, they would have divorced her 10 times over. The person she married, just to take on. And so that's the only way that she remained married, because of the personality that she has. She's out there. So he just simply he gives you the look and just be like, that's what she needed. Imagine she married one of me. She married a guy like me, for example, with that kind of personality, that kind of alpha. This is why women, you tend to see who are masculine, tend to marry men who are feminine or not as masculine. Go and see any woman that you know that are boisterous and dominating. See how often you see them marry a man who is a total alpha male. Like when he walks into a room and you can feel testosterone oozing out his skin. Do your own check, your own parents. Just do it and you'll see. It tends to not happen because a woman who is masculine tends to attract only men who are feminine. And therefore, she deep down knows that she needs an alpha male, but she can't attract them. So she settles for a man who she can control because there's a degree of narcissism in it. So that is what makes the relationship work. So a lot of times they are equally yoked because one partner is able to give what the other is not able to. Don't choose a mate that is similar to you. Understand that relationships are not about somebody making you happy. Relationships are more about you growing and learning from each other. And the more you grow and learn, that builds true intimacy. And you actually get closer and go higher, closer and go higher. That is what relationships is about. Relationships should not be one based on arguing, should not be one based on a disagreement, should not be one based on what I am going to get from that person if I am with that person. Anytime you're with somebody in a relationship and you are there because of what you actually hope to get or achieve from someone when you're with them, it means therefore that you are not supposed to be in that relationship, or that person is not supposed to be with you. You're selfish, you're greedy, and it's not going to work out well for you. You are supposed to, in a relationship, meet someone who you are willing to give all of yourself with. And even if you don't get back something in return from that person, You're still supposed to give. In other words, if you are a wife to someone in a relationship, when you are equally yoked, it doesn't mean that you're supposed to get back something in return. What's up, Warren? It doesn't mean that you're supposed to get back something in return when you give that person something. Loving someone means wanting the best for that person, whether or not you are able to be with them, expecting absolutely nothing in return. How many of us are actually willing to do that when we talk about equally yoked? Every day you see people go around the road and we talk about until death do us part. But because we don't know ourselves and what we actually need and what we have to give, because most of us don't have anything to give to someone else except in women cases, sex. And in men cases, have sex with. Most parties just generally, if you remove sex outside of the discussion, you would see that both parties aren't able to give anything to each other because they don't know themselves. They have nothing to give. They have not grown and learned and feel some pain and go through some deep places and do some meditation. In a relationship, you're supposed to know who you... That's why I'm saying from the beginning, Sparkle. I don't know what time you came in. But that's what I'm saying is you need to know yourself. So when you know yourself, you know your strengths and your weaknesses, and you have to be honest about them. And therefore, when you meet a guy, you would know what you don't need. So if that guy is bringing stuff into your relationship and you write them down, you would see what he brings and you will find out if what he brings... If you don't need that, no matter how he makes you feel, walk away. You women choose men based on how you feel about them. And that's what hurts you. You don't analyze relationships. You have to remove emotions out of it when you're choosing a lifelong mate and find that person that is able to match you. So when you get that person, it comes easy. Because you know, let's say for example, this is the other thing that you need to understand. When you're dating someone, it requires you to know a lot. So I mentioned, for example, personality characteristics of personality traits like sanguine, melancholic, phlegmatic, right? You need to know where in the spectrum do you fall. Alpha, omega, beta. You need to know alpha, omega, beta, where on the spectrum in either one of those that you fall in. Are you alpha, 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 beta, beta, alpha, beta, beta? Where do you fall in, for example? Because you need to know where that other person is on the spectrum. Right? Yes, it is. For women especially, it is, Sparkle. It's always based on feelings for women. There's nothing in a relationship is not based. Women want intimacy in relationship. Men want sex. So it's not the same for men, right? So reciprocity is not based on feelings for men, but it is for women. All right? Men don't want relationships. Men want sex. But in order for a man to get a relationship with you, to get sex, he has to have the relationship and give you intimacy. So you want romance, he wants sex. You understand? You want his time, he wants compliance. So you want him to spend, carry you out, pick you up, drop you home, open door, close door. He wants you to come inside, lie down, give him sex, go to sleep, wake up, cook for him. That's what he wants. We both want different things. So understanding that, which is gender intelligence, then you go and you understand personality traits. Phlegmatic, sanguine, melancholic. Which one is it? Right? When you get the personality traits, you have to now assess the person based on where on the spectrum are they a leader, a follower. Those things matter to you. You have to know if you want a man who is willing to work, that you can, if you want to stay home after you make babies, you have those conversations. Does he want me to work? Is he an entrepreneur or entrepreneur? They're not the same. Is he willing to work in a company but work hard and be a CEO, or wants to run his own business? Or is he just willing to be an employee, a worker? Those are things that you must understand in order to be unequally yoked, because money and finance is the number one, and then sex in relationship that has problems. So if those things aren't vented and ventilated, then you have a problem. Those things matter in someone being equally or unequally yoked. So you must know if the person's a leader, alpha, omega, beta. You must know the personality trait of the person. Then you must know the person's love language. You must know what your top 2 or 3 love languages are. And you must know what that other person's is. Are you the type of person that is willing to meet that other person's love languages? And is that other person the type of person that is willing to be able to meet yours? Because I tell you what, if love languages aren't met, if love languages aren't looked at, if love languages aren't taken into consideration, when you couple that with personality traits, you couple that with personality types, then you have a problem. Because if you are in a relationship with someone and you're not putting something in that love bank, it's going to run empty. Relationships require investment and savings, and putting a deposit into that bank like anything else in life. Let me give you an example. It's my birthday's weekend, for example. You're my girlfriend. If you decide that I am taking you to dinner, but if dinner does not matter to me, if I prefer you cook a home-cooked meal and we look at Netflix, opposed to me getting dressed and go to dinner, while what you have done is something nice, and you have spent money, you have invested time and resources, it was for you. It was not for me. I've been in relationships where that happened. I've never been the type to need to go out to dinner for my birthday. I would prefer that you do something for me, give me a facial or cook a meal for me, something different, opposed to going out to dinner. You like going out to dinner. And so what happened is you decided to take me out to dinner because you like to go out to dinner. And you know and think it's nice. So you think you're doing something nice for me, but it's not for me. So what happened is that you actually made a withdrawal from my love bank, or at the very least, put nothing in. And that didn't take our relationship to another level. It remained in the very same place. And it therefore also means that we are unequally yoked. Because what you're doing was selfish. It was not for you. For me, sorry, it was for you. So this is why it's so important to understand someone's love language. See, if I don't care, I'm a guy, for example, that compliments doesn't matter to me. If you give me a compliment, most times I know I'm working towards that already. So you telling me, for example, wow, you're big, or wow, you're in great shape, or you don't have to tell me that I have abs. You don't have to tell me I'm in great shape. I woke up this morning and I went and do cardio. You know, like my partner Warren, who's on looking at tonight. Every time I open Instagram, he just ran a 5K. My cousin Joy, who's on tonight, she seems to be fitter than me right now. So she's always doing some exercises. And so on Instagram, and I'm not talking about light things. So the point is, somebody comes up and goes, wow, you're fit. And she smiles and says thanks, because she's a woman, so generally happens like that. But of course, I was sweating, I was in pain, I got an injury. Of course, I spent 3-4 years working out, so I know I'm in shape. It's you see? So you telling me that, but there are people, however, who in a gym, and they will be in mirrors, and they look at mirrors, and they can't stop looking in mirrors and flexing. And so what matters to them is somebody telling them, wow, you look great. If you don't tell them that you look great, or you just bowl, yeah, all right, it affects them because that's their love language. So if you, for example, meet someone and you are not able to meet or match that person's love language, it means that you are unequally yoked with that person. That's not the person that you need to meet to be with in life, because there aren't anything like soulmates. I want to tell you guys that. See the soulmate thing? Souls have no gender. So there aren't soulmates. Okay? It's in scripture. There are no such thing as soulmates. What they are is each of us, and for some people it will happen way more often, has the ability to meet people that are highly in line with who they are. And a lot of times we meet them and not even aware. After a decade or so, you look back and you say, that is the woman I was supposed to marry, or that is the guy I was supposed to marry. And for some people, from high school, they actually meet that person, and it happens more in with the white ethnic group. They tend to have those type of relationships more than black people do, because in black people tend to, their parents tell them go to school, get a degree, and work. Men are always there. They say that to both genders, and that's damaging. But you see in colleges, white girls, for example, will tend to be having boyfriends and be engaged long before they leave college. See, and so that's where the difference is. And so their probability, because of the meeting so many guys in school, of meeting the right guy for them is much likely, one, and then two, because they generally don't be with much men, they carry less baggage or issues towards relationships. So most times, a lot of times, their first or second relationship is their husband. So it's easier, because a woman who has 10, 12, 15 relationships, that is also a reason and another issue why a man and a woman can be unequally yoked. Because of how much relationship she has been in, because women tend to hold on to stuff, opposed to men. Men are able to let go. Women hold on to stuff. That's why God made them with larger kidneys, as I said before. So men can easily move on after relationships. Women could hold on to relationships for 5, 10, 15 years or life. I have family members who hold on to issues all their lives. Women, only the women, as a matter of fact. So, being unequally yoked, I will probably come and do a video. I can do a whole video just laying out all the things that you need to pay attention to when you're seeking to be in a relationship with a person, to ensure that you're equally yoked. And you'll be blown away. I've talked about 5 things off the top of my head right now in this video that you need to look at. You understand? And those are not things that people generally look at. So understand what is required of being equally yoked. Understand what you want, who you are, so you know what you don't want, and who you are not, so you would not get who you don't need in your life. Don't make decisions, especially as a woman, on the basis of how someone makes you feel. Vibration is another thing. Energy is another thing. But this feeling that you look for, this is why so many women goes for bad boys, or men who aren't working, or out of prison, or in prison, is because they stimulate something inside. Be careful with that. It's not going to help you. Alright? Choose wisely. Take account of everything. Write down his personality traits and the characteristics that makes up him or her as an individual. Spend time understanding yourself. Do some meditation. Understand how fast you breathe. If under the shower you palpitate and get short breath. If you're not in shape, why you're not in shape. If you like food, what type of food you like. For instance, if you are with a woman who is a red-skinned woman, who is especially Spanish, they generally like food that are spicy. They're more quarrelsome. You need to know these things. A black woman likes foods with great seasoning. not necessarily spicy, but well seasoned. You see, so there are different things that they need, and based on their masculinity, you would find that they would need more pepper or none at all. Those are the indicators for feminism and masculinity, for especially black women. So there's a lot of things that you need to look at and understand. Don't just walk into something on the basis of someone, how they make you feel. And not because you're in the same church with someone means that that person is the right person for you, even if you're both born and grew up in that church. Because what tends to happen is people leave churches a lot of times, and people tend to grow apart in their belief system. And it's different parts of the country or the world, same type of church denomination. If you go one end and another end, you see that they actually make reference to the same scripture reading differently. They have Pentecostals who are Sabbath keepers, Baptists who are Sabbath keepers. You see what I mean? So be very careful with choosing a mate and making sure that you're equally yoked. Alright? You can DM me and message me if you need some further information and further breakdown on some stuff that wasn't clear to you. But don't make the mistake and choose someone that are similar to you and think that because they are similar to you, that you're equally yoked. I know too many women. In fact, most of the women in my family, most of the females in my family have all married men who are not leaders or highly masculine men, and it has made them not necessarily very happy. Right? I've seen it. It's a trend. I can't think of one right now. It's like a curse, or I mean, it's that bad, and it doesn't have to be. Know what you want, and then you may need to make some changes as well. You may need to make some adjustment based on what you deep down really want in life. The problem might be you. You just might be the problem, that you may need to make some changes and you're not ready for a relationship because you have to make some adjustments. All right, so DM me if you need any further information. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. And we'll talk soon, much more on this. We'll do a part 2 to this soon. All right, bye for now.